Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Business. My name is Ian Dennis and tonight we have quite an exciting show lined up. As you can see, I've tried to wear my favorite regalia because I'm seated next to a fashionista who has been in this particular industry for the last 20 years and there's so much to learn from her journey. But before I get to introduce my guest, I'd like to let you know that we are at the Capital Club, the place where you need to be for any particular entrepreneur. Being part of the Capital Club exposes you to a wide network. And how exactly I met my guest today, I met her through the Capital Club. And it's like, I've always wanted to meet you. And the Capital Club presented that particular opportunity. The guest I'm speaking about is Carole Kinoti, a fashionista for the last 20 years, a humanitarian. She'll tell us through that particular journey. And most recently, also an educator. Carole Kinoti, welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
You know, when you're meeting a fashionista, you always have to wear your best. How do you rate me today? I'm trying to be African.
Pressure. First of all, I'm wondering why you're not in a Carole Kinoti shirt. That's the first problem.
The problem is there.
Yeah.
I was trying to impress you so that next time you can actually now give me. You can tell me my size and all.
You look good. I like people who wear made in Kenya because it means you've given somebody a job.
It's true, and you're just supporting local brands. I'm actually wearing a designer called Ashok.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, Ashok.
Yes, you know Ashok.
Yes, I know Ashok.
Interesting. Nice
Very
to
nice.
meet you. Looking lovely as always.
Thank you.
Even just before we even get into the composition, what are you most grateful for today?
Life, breathing, oxygen. It's not obvious. We just come out of Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, baby.
I know, right?
I don't know why, but it's just like yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yes.
And I was telling my son, you know, that wish, Happy Mother's Day, it's one of those that I can't be replaced.
Interesting.
And I cannot share with anyone. Unfortunately, it's only me who gets that greeting of Happy Mother's Day for now. From him, yeah.
And how do you feel, probably, because I know it's such a big role and a big responsibility being a mother, and it's something we celebrate because all of us are from a mother somewhere.
I know, right?
Yes. How does it feel?
You see, there's you being someone's daughter. Therefore, you're looking at your mother and you understand all that it is to be a mother. And then there's me being a mother. Both of them, it give you different kind of feelings. I'll start with my mom. You know, as a girl, you grow up and you think your mom doesn't know anything.
True.
You think she's old, you think she's fussing, you think she's old-fashioned. And then you grow up and you become a mother. And every single thing that she told you is what applies in the next 5. Because, you know, you don't try new things. If it worked with me, then it should work with me.
And there's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. So today, this actually year's theme for me was to celebrate her, appreciate her. She still challenges me until today. I look at her way of loving and I find it extremely unique. And I would like to learn how to love the way she does.
Interesting.
Then my kids, the best thing that ever happened to me, I have to keep reminding myself that they don't belong to me. They're God's creatures. I don't own them, you know, because it's very easy to want to own them.
True.
But it's the best thing that can ever happen to a woman.
Wow,
is
interesting.
To be a mother.
Oh, no, I can actually just get to relate because there's nothing like a mother's love in this particular life.
There's nothing like a mother's love. You know, my daughter says, I don't get it. How do you love somebody else, Mom? How do you get to the point of loving someone else the way you love us? You know? I tell her, you don't understand. You were in my womb for 9 months. Yeah. Connected like this, you cannot disconnect.
Without paying rent.
Yeah, without paying rent. And you stand up here and you tell me, you know, it's my life, really.
It's true.
You know? Yeah, but yeah, I enjoy it. I love it.
Wow, interesting. So you've been in the fashion industry for the last 20 years, which is not an easy feat, doing the same thing over the last 20 years. But before you get into your journey, I'd like just to know about your upbringing. How was your upbringing like, and where did this particular entrepreneurship bug come along? Was it from your mom? Or what did your mom used to do?
Actually, yes. And then I would say both. Because my mom sold clothes. She used to sell clothes. She was bringing clothes from, you know, those days, Dubai, the UK.
Oh, back in the day?
Yes.
My goodness, that is the 80s or what?
Yes, she used to bring in clothes. And then she was very particular about how my sister and I dressed. So I look back now and I see where, you know,
that influence.
Yeah, it influenced because I had no streaks of fashion anywhere. I didn't care, but my sister is the one who drew and sat with the designer and made sure that our clothes, you know, were made in a certain manner. I just used to show up where I'd go. But I remember one trip, one family trip. We took a holiday and my dad was taking us out he said, I'm going to show you the lakeside. And it was a road trip across Nakuru, El Potato, to Kisumu. I still have photos until today.
Yeah.
And we traveled in heels.
Heels?
Yes, and I remember my mom was trying to make sure that we learn how to wear heels, you know.
How old are you then?
About, I don't know, I think 16, 17.
Ah, all right.
And wow, I look at those photos and I'm like, wow, we were smart. Huh? You know, it was very particular. It was very particular about how we picked our clothes and stuff like that. And of course, after some time, she let it be. I think she realized we figured it out now. You guys can do your thing. So that alone got me to understand how to dress myself up and value good clothes. So when it comes to entrepreneurship and being able to do the business, I wouldn't even say that I grew up knowing I want to do a business. I just grew up knowing that I need to do what I love to do and being encouraged to do what I love to do. So my dad looked very clearly on the things that we are good at. And I was that child that the birthdays at home had to be set in a certain manner.
Yeah,
you know,
very particular.
Yeah, I used my hands a lot. You know, I set the tables in a certain manner. I was very particular about food, anything hands, hair. And by the time I was getting to fourth form, there was no discussion. Everybody knew I'm going to be a chef or something.
Yeah, I read it somewhere. You're supposed to have been a chef.
I am a chef. I'm a trained chef for 3 years. I actually went to school to study that.
Interesting. So you always had this particular passion just to use your hands and...
I'll make roses out of tomatoes. Anything that involves starting it from zero. I'm a super creative. I'll use my hands and I'll make it according to how I visualize it. So, I mean, food is the first thing that a girl comes across at home, and that's where most of us who are creative, we start from food because it's at home, it's easily accessible.
True.
Yeah. So I went to college to study.
Here in Kenya or abroad?
Yes, yeah, actually I went to a college in Meru because I did not make it into Utali where I really wanted to go. And I was so heartbroken, and my dad said, don't worry, your career will still. So I'll take you to our diploma course, and then after that you can go to South Africa and continue there. Okay, so I did my 3 years, graduated top of my class, and they set out to go and do my degree in food and beverage.
Yes, yeah.
I changed my mind.
Well,
so
in
between, while I was waiting for my results to come out, I knew one thing for sure though, that I do not want to work in a hotel setup.
Yeah.
Even as I did what I did and I did it well,
Why is that?
I knew that I don't want that setup.
Is it because of the routine or what?
I am very family oriented. So I kept on thinking, when people are out for Christmas, I am at work. How does this make sense? You know, when I start a family, will I do night shifts? So those are the questions that kept on coming to my mind, and I would wonder. Then monotony, I'm like, how would I deal with it? Remember, I'm a creative.
And creatives don't like to be controlled.
Yeah, something, this setup. Because I've done internships, I'd say feeling I'm being confined. This is not working. So, but remember, I also came from a home where you're listened to. If you don't want, just say you don't want, it's okay. So I had the freedom to.
And that's very interesting, because what I'm getting from you is that your parents were very keen in terms of that which you're good at, and they're trying to take you through that.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
They
and that's very different, because it was in the, I presume, the 80s, 70s. Things are very different. I'm like, you have to go to school, there's a presumed manner, but here you are, you're having a different path. My
dad was very cosmopolitan. He didn't follow rules of who and what a tribe is supposed to be, or a girl is supposed to be. It's you and your personality and what you want, and he works that with you. So anyway, I have this break and I'm waiting for my results, because in 6 months I'm supposed to go and further my studies in South Africa, and everything is in place. And you know, at that time you're a young girl, so you are free.
And you're already used to your heels.
No, I dumped them.
Really?
That time we were wearing, you know, those jeans that had patches and they're ripped. I remember my 21st birthday, my dad asked me, what do you want for your birthday? So he gave me money. I think he gave me 3,500. Then he went away. When he came, he said, what did you buy? Then I showed up in those things. And they had the British flag, then they ripped.
Oh yeah, the one with the so many
yeah.
flags. Yeah, I remember seeing them in
He
pictures.
said, then you took them for repairs or what?
Couldn't
That's what
tell
I
you
went
were
to
new.
buy. Yeah, you're like, this are new.
Yeah.
That's what I bought for my 21st birthday. So yeah, so he said, fine, is there something you want to do for 6 months while we
Wait, yeah.
wait for you to go? I said, I don't know. It has to be something that ends in 6 months. So I look around, I'm like, oh, I had dressing courses 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
He says, fine. You know, someone else would have gone for IT, computers.
True.
At that time, you guys were going for computers, you know?
Or go to study French.
Yes, or to, yes, Alliance. I think I tried one of those one time.
Like it's a Kenya startup pack.
I
Finish school.
go to Alliance,
Yeah.
or you go to do comps.
Yes.
We used to do comps. I don't know what they're doing now. Maybe robotics. I don't know.
It's
what
still the
they're doing.
same. It's still the same. You still have to do the CDL and maybe teach yourself French, which you'll forget after a year or something. The same thing. It has never changed.
I went now to do. I went to Labelle's School of Hairdressing to pastime because it used to be pastime.
Yes.
So 3 months into it,
You found it.
no,
Yeah.
a friend of mine whose sister had a shop somewhere and she was making clothes, was looking for somebody to share the space. Small space difference.
Yeah.
And then, so we're talking to my friends, like my sister is struggling and she's looking for someone who is not in competition
Yes.
to do this. So my dad, every time we got home, he would sit and he wants to listen to every single thing you did.
Wow.
Oh, I met so-and-so, then I ate, then I did. He did that with his daughters.
That's interesting. So that every evening you sit down with your dad and your dad goes through your
and
day.
I just want to, just listen to stories.
Wow.
You'd laugh until he cries. And he loved listening to our stories. And I said, where is this lady? And she's looking for what? He said, really? What does it take? I said, I don't know. I think a salon would be interested. He says, why don't you do it? I'm like, but I'm leaving in 3 months. And I mean, this is not my core business. He says, Carole, 3 months in life is a long time. Go see what you need. I'll set you up. I'm
Wow.
like, okay.
Yeah.
So I go, River Road, salon, nini, sink, nini. I tell him, Dad, this is how much. He says, fine, bye. The next minute, I had a salon. And I'm still going to. Luckily, it was very near where I was going to school.
Yeah.
And now my girlfriends had a place to come and make their hairs for free. And then we go out.
You're not charging?
Really? Do you know how old I was?
So you built up, or you set up a full salon, but you're just doing it for fun?
It was just one sink,
Yeah.
once, whatever. But I mean, remember, I've just been told, why don't you do it? So
Yeah.
it's not even something I'd really thought about. And then it's on my way.
Your way, yeah, you're on your way off.
Yeah, so for me, it's like a place to hang out.
Yes.
Then we go. So that was my first proper contact with tailoring business.
Yes.
Because she was running this business and I was running
The other
the
business.
salon. And I found myself very involved in solutions. Like, no, why don't you put a slit here? Why do you know?
Oh, so you
yeah.
used to help her too.
By flukes, just because we're in the same space.
True.
The next thing I was like so involved in these processes because you know how clothes are fitted.
True.
You're adjusting, you're doing what? I was like, okay, I'm actually really, remember I'm a creative, so
Yes.
solutions are top of mind. So within a very short time, I'd already decided I'm not going to South Africa.
Said
So I'm
no to
not
South Africa.
going.
You're not boarding.
I'm not boarding this flight. And quickly I was able to convince Mzee that I don't have to go. He said, so what do you want? I said, just set me up. Let me just do this business. But this time I want to do it both the salon and the tailoring.
Yes.
So And then I was sure this is exactly where I settle.
And that's very interesting. So you're getting married, or rather gotten married, you're transitioning into business, you're schooling. How do you used to balance all
I'm
this?
having a baby.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Strength of a mother.
I know.
Or strength of a woman.
Multitasking
My
is
goodness.
one of the things that we do very well. But it was nice because it's still, if you love what you do, then it doesn't feel like work.
True.
You understand? So
And-
for me, yeah.
And something very interesting out of what I'm getting out of you. Initially, you're just doing it for fun. You used to enjoy it. Your father used to support you. At what point did you now realize this is a business and I need to pursue it?
When now when I said I'm not going to South Africa,
Mhm.
then I knew now settle down properly, now run this properly, go to school, get it right, and do it well.
And you got in the industry that you're in. It's an industry whereby I presume back in the day, maybe 20 years from now, it was just presumed like it's a pastime. I did mention earlier on, because most guys in Kenya, whether import or mtumba, that's primarily what's running. So
Yes.
how was your initial days trying to make it a business?
Actually, the interesting thing is I remember when I told my dad this is what I'm going to do. The second collection, I named it Rafaela. His name is Rafael. And it was the most expensive collection I've ever done. You can never do it without a team.
Mhm.
I always had my team, the tailors, the beaders, and that kind of stuff. But the client trusts you.
Yes.
It is you who visualizes the dress with her. It is you who applies the creativity onto the dress.
True.
So I did a lot of beadwork myself because remember,
So you
yes,
had learned all these things in school, or you learned them along the way?
I don't even know where I learned them, but I was very good at it. I'm very good at it.
Yes.
But for me, if I draw it, I can make it. If I
Ah.
can't draw it, then I cannot make it.
That's very interesting.
So
Yes.
if I sketch,
Yes.
because I never used magazines and all, then whatever it is I've sketched
That's-
is what you'll get, or even better.
And you mentioned about the Rafaela, what's it called? Collection, which
Yes.
you're naming out of your father, and you said it was the most expensive. How expensive was it, and how did that particular, what's it called, penetration into the market go?
It caught me off guard because we did very expensive silk, and they bordered on occasional and they're almost like capes, and the cape would go for 18,000 shillings, and that's nearly over 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's expensive, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember Carole and Motoko took 4 of them,
Mhm.
Instantly. And I was testing the market to see whether Kenya is ready to buy such an outfit from.
And
From
how did you
somebody.
go about it? Because you're new to the industry, you're trying to build this particular brand name. How did you get this particular market?
I actually didn't get into Rafaela that early. In between, there was a lot of made to measure.
Mhm.
The fashion industry today here is about come, fit, stitch, adjust, and make. You understand?
Mhm.
So I did that for very long.
Oh,
You understand?
yes.
Rafaela was developed in the second phase when I changed
Oh.
my business model, and
Yes.
that's when I rebranded to the Carole Kinoti brand.
Mhm.
Understand?
Interesting.
Because when I did the 15 years,
Yes.
I realized I'm not able to scale. I'm not scaling this business.
Mhm.
It's so dependent on me. If people don't find me here, they
Yes.
they go
They
away. Yeah, 2007, if elections come and
Yeah.
there's crisis and nobody is interested in clothes, and you shut down.
Wow.
So I realized this business, if I don't change it, then there will be a problem. Because you cannot have all these things affecting it all the time. It
True.
can't fully depend on me.
Mm.
I knew I had a problem. I was getting tired of.
Oh, because you're the one personally involved in the business.
Yes, it was just too much. My kids were growing up. I'm feeling like now I need to get out, So I put a pause and I went back to school.
So before you even go on a break, why did you decide to use your name as your brand name?
I'm about to get there. So I went back to school. So before then, my business was called La Casa Designers.
La Casa?
La Casa Designers.
Not La Casa, La Casa de Papel, the money heist?
No. La Casa Designers for the longest time. And then, so I went back to school. So when I went back to Strathmore Business School,
yes,
I went because I was exhausting. I suffered a burnout. And when I suffered that burnout, I wanted nothing to do with clothes. Nothing to do with the woman, nothing to do with...
It had become a toxic relationship.
I'm not understanding your ankles and waistlines anymore. So I was going away. I was going away on almost like a sabbatical.
Yes.
I don't have a deadline on when I'll come back to this or not. So the course that I chose into Strathmore was not a fashion-related course.
Interesting.
I was just going away.
Let me just pause here. We go away for a small break and then come back.
Thank you.
So taking a small break, but quite an interesting story from Carole Kinoti. And then after the break, you want to find out how did that particular transition from La Casa to Carole Kinoti come about. So see you after the break. So welcome back to the show. Before we went on a break, Carole was just breaking down the journey on how exactly she started 20 years back. Now you're like 10 years into this particular journey.
Yeah.
You're at a point of now transitioning from the business that you had, or rather the brand name that you had before. You're calling it La Casa
Designers.
La Casa Designers.
Yes.
We should explain to me it's Italian.
Yeah. And I don't know any other Italian word. That one, I don't even know what I was trying. Yeah.
That's the beginning and the end of your Italian lessons.
Yeah, my Italian life, yeah. So so I suffered a burnout. And I needed to stop because what I was doing involved a lot of emotional connection. When you're doing occasions and weddings, you have to really apply your emotions into the space. And I just couldn't take it anymore.
Wow.
So I packed up and I went back to school.
And what triggered you going back to school? Because then everybody who suffers a burnout, you want to take a rest. You decided to go to school.
I was just going away. I was looking for a place where I'll meet.
So you shut down the business fully?
No, I couldn't shut it down. But for me, who is doing wedding gowns and stuff like that, shutting down is being not present.
All right.
That is shutting down because you can't take any orders when you're not present. You can delegate them. So I left it running organically and just put very little energy on it and went to school. I was going to school because I just wanted to put other new things into my head. I also wanted to go away and meet with people who do not want to buy clothes, And when I went
be away from your industry.
I remember when I went to the class, I made sure, first of all, I didn't dress like a designer. I did not introduce myself
as a designer.
Yeah. I remember in the second module, somebody had done a gown for, because when I'm idle and I'm quiet, I draw. And I started drawing, and the way the seats are at the back, she tapped her head. You've never told these guys what you do.
So you're going away, but someone gets you.
Yeah, and you see, I introduced myself. Yes, I'm a designer. I do corporate wear. I do what, but I did not say I'm that designer that can do it this way. You understand? So you see, it stays open, especially in a space whereby it's very corporate. You're with manufacturers. You're guys in IT. Everybody has something, so there's no time to dwell on that one particular person. I remember one of my closest friends today saying, after a week later, you don't think I can buy from you? You've not.
I know those people. I'm like, you don't tell me what you do.
And it's because I'm here. I don't want to sell anything. You guys don't want to be a stupid. Anything. I just want a break, So I was using the space for a break, but that was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Interesting.
Because we were 38 of us in a classroom, and everybody is in a different sector. But at the end of the day, it's a business conversation. So is it service industry? Is it producing plastics? Is it manufacturing alcohol? At the end of the day, it's still a business.
True.
And when I sat in that class, exactly 1 week, besides drawing them, because I was just drawing this
Yes.
level, I'm a mature designer. So what's next? I'm very introverted. This might not come out like true, but that's it. I like my quiet space. And because of that, I operated my business without a signboard. I did not advertise. It was purely referral. I kept very low. So I knew it's about time I come out as well, you know. So drew the plan on how to rebrand. Picked out my strengths, which was number one, figured out women like an answers. I know exactly what they're thinking about, what they want to wear when. I can execute it. I know where the problems are. I know where the industry issues are. I know what we can solve short term, mid term. I mean, I've been at it. So I said, I'm going to use that to create what I'll do next.
Interesting.
And I told myself the one thing that I know I have and I've built is loyalty and trust behind my name. So I'm going to use my name as the next phase of my business.
Interesting. And in terms of just using your name as a brand, how exactly has it been? Because I know it's usually sometimes, it's, I don't know, it's just, I know it's a bit tricky using your name as your main brand. Because everything falls and lies on your name, falls on, lies on, what's it called, what exactly you've done in the industry. How has it been?
That's what not only how the business wants, but how I live, how I behave.
Everything is your reflection.
How I like to holiday. Unfortunately, all those have to be one. So I decided my objectives and my goals have to tie to my social life, my business life, you know, my personality, my spirituality, everything has to be one, because I can't separate.
Interesting. And something about your brand is that you've, what's it called, sort of like elevated your brand to be a brand for executives and a brand for, I saw somewhere, your first ladies and likes. How did you choose this niche, and how exactly have you managed to drive this niche?
You'd be surprised that I started long ago. When I started, Made to Measure, using myself, I don't like things that I will find everywhere. I don't follow trends.
Yes, trends follow you.
I set the pace. So I would go around and I can't find anything to wear.
Yeah.
And then when I make it, it still looks like someone else's, you know. So I said bringing in my fabric, and bringing in my fabrics would mean the clothes would end up quite expensive, because by the time you land it here, duties and everything.
Yeah.
So automatically, these clothes have to be sold to a certain specific woman. Understand? So my price was from the beginning quite up. Well, prestigious in a way that fine, if you can afford it, okay, so you just get elsewhere. You have no problem. You understand? So I've always had that personality of it's okay, you don't have to have it.
True.
Some kind of patience with myself when I'm putting this together. And then I'm good at what I'm doing. I'm really good. I won't lie to you.
And just take me through, because I know it's something very interesting that you're doing, like trying to, you've created a brand and this brand is high level. What are some of the, what's it called, the lessons in terms of building such a brand, like a high level brand targeting specific people? What are some of the lessons that you can derive out of your business that you can actually even share to the audience?
Patience.
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 How did you reach out to?
You don't need to reach out. Your name will travel. You see, if you're patient, for example, then you'll not make desperate decisions to sell quick. Because if it's expensive, it most likely will take a bit of time, isn't it?
Yes.
And then applying uniqueness and process. You know, you've heard about slow fashion.
True.
So applying yourself through the slow fashion processes, therefore people start appreciating the work that you put in.
So it's a work of years.
Yeah, it's a work of time and years. And then if one person is happy, then the next person will be happy. They will tell the next person, and that takes patience to build your network,
and
slowly by slowly.
And the thing about the, because we talk about patience in business, which sometimes you don't know how long the patience is going to last. How did you sustain yourself through the patience? Because you are like, I'm building this for this particular niche, and it's only this niche that I'm actually targeting. And probably it takes a while. How did you sustain yourself during this period?
You still have to have that whatever it is that drives the brand. So I had to diversify. Very early in the days, I went into interiors. You know, I went into corporate wear, and then of course now the made to measure. So you find like you have different sources of revenue within the same line of business, and that will keep you going in the process.
So at least the other also primarily this brand it's specific for this, but I have other particular elements of the business that's actually sustaining the business.
And if you watch my journey, it's about diversification across the board, because from making the dress to bringing out the best in you, therefore your living space, you understand? Then where you go to work, therefore there's the corporate wear, now into education, you know, into humanitarian, into, you know, business for purpose. All of that is about opening more opportunities to be able to open revenue lines.
I get that. So you've been in the business for the last almost 20 years, which is not an easy feat, because many people like, you do 2-3 years, let me go back to employment or let me go do something else.
I say patience and consistency.
So what will you say that are the biggest lessons you can derive out of the 20 years you've been doing business?
I've grown up. I'm grown up. I'm probably 70 if you cut my blood.
Business makes you grow old.
Yeah, it makes you grow old in the mind. I mean, you know, you learn more, you grow wider, you meet all sorts of people, you make all sorts of mistakes, you become very resilient. But that is only if you choose to be. For me, I've always known that the more you do it at the same time, the better you become. So the choice to keep changing, it's not what I think is the best to be done. And today's generation, I wish people could be patient enough. Because you take a job, and by the time it gets a little bit hard, then you want to shift to the next one. Then when will you become perfect?
Interesting.
When will you become perfect if you're not refining and refining and refining? So I've always preferred to not look at the time and the deadlines, but just try and keep getting better. I said, the next 2 years, I've got to take it here. The next 2 years,
so
I have to take it.
Growth.
Yes, and then you keep evolving, you know, you keep evolving so that you don't get forgotten. I knew that by the time I'm getting to the 15 years, new designers are going to come Understand?
Now everybody, this is a designer.
Everyone
Everybody
is a
finishes a form
designer.
4.
Is
I'm
a
a
designer.
designer.
Even my clients are designers. Everybody wants to be a designer.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to be a designer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your responsibility to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
It's your responsibility to build trust over time.
Mm-hmm.
Those things don't come if you're all over the place. You just have to be patient
Patient.
and consistent and resilient.
I was going through your Instagram page and just scrolling through it, and there's something very interesting that I saw. I think when you're celebrating your 45th birthday some years back, and you literally sort of mentioned it as your turning point, because it was at that particular point that you now had this particular urge for, what's it called, your humanitarian actions, fashion on the road and the likes.
Yes.
Just take me through that transition, because I'm like, they always say life starts at 40, and then how was that particular transition? You've been doing it for so long, and then it kicks in that you need to do much more.
Well, number one, my kids are saying, "Mom, get a life." We've grown up. Then I'm like, projects. So I'm not only traveling, I'm not only engaging with women, but I'm still creating more and more and newer projects and products, because it's just how big my brain is. You just have to get other people who know better than you. Those who are better in beadwork, those who are better in stitching, those who are better, that kind of stuff. So inside these projects, I will travel, I will look out for more culture, creative ideas, meet people with better minds than myself, understand how people relate in different places. And the more I do that, there's no way my cup of creativity will ever dry.
That's very interesting. And because it's been, what's it called? Because as a designer, you always need that particular element of just getting a lot of influences.
Yes.
And I just checked, what's it called? I'm just going through fashion on the road and primarily what exactly you're trying to do. You're trying to mentor, I think, close to 3,000 entrepreneurs. How, what's it called? How is it? How did you come to that, and how much have you achieved since, what's it called, the start of the initiative?
So 4 pillars, first of all: production issues, advertising, cost of doing business in fashion, financial problems, marketing problems. Those are problems.
So it's a full business mentorship program.
It is a business for purpose program, you understand? But in it, we educate, we elevate, we mentor, we collaborate, There's room, both initiatives are structured to allow partnerships. So there's what I'm good at, and it's my core business. So, but the partners come on board strategically with their strengths, understand? So because you've had Mavazi and you've had production and education, Strathmore Business School is my main partner when it comes to knowledge. Anything to do with knowledge. Why? Because designers, creatives are not certified, most of them, in the business world. So the role of Strathmore is to make sure that that is refined. And who are you educating? The young people, the youth, the people who have time, understand? But products that involve patience and slow fashion the mature woman does it better. Therefore, that's why I work with the women. So processes of crocheting, processes of beading.
So you're actually in the ground and take them through all this?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I love it so much. So they will do the fast, but the women will apply the slow. But as you have this conversation with the women, then you know where their youth is, and then you're able to. So how do I do it to be able to meet, like what you've asked, the numbers and the wins and fly across? is I like to work with organized institutions.
Ah.
You understand? So if it's women, for example, I work with the women in the prisons. Why? Because the women in the prisons in Kenya.
So you travel around prisons?
We have an engagement with the State Department, Correctional Department, and it covers the 47 counties.
Wow.
So the women in the prisons are clustered for me to be able to engage with. So of course we go stage by stages. For now we've addressed the women in Langata prisons. I've been there for the last almost 2 years now. And now we're moving to the prisons, the male prisons, and then the next one, and the next one.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
But if I happen to have an event or something going on in Kisumu, then I'll engage with the women in Kodiaga. If I happen to have something, a project going in Kitui, I'll engage with the women in prisons.
I get you.
You understand?
Interesting.
That's how the relationship looks like. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Something interesting is that, you know, it's easier saying it that you've been doing something for all this while. Have you always kept yourself refreshed and just focused on being on this particular journey? Because you're in an era where people always get to switch. And I try this, doesn't work, you move. Have you kept yourself refreshed for all this while? Because you look so young.
I'm 51.
Yeah, I
just
know.
turned 51 the other day.
But you can't even tell. But you've kept yourself so fresh all this while. Doing the same. Because I know for us, and I don't know, I'm a millennial myself. I know after like 5 years you get bored of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Have you done it? What exactly has been the secret for you to do it for all this while?
First of all, I do what I love to do. I love to do it. This is what I love to do. Number two is I like measuring progress.
How do you measure your progress?
First of all, I put sticky notes on my dressing mirror to see where I'm going and see. And I place things that I think are impossible in front of me. Therefore, I am like, okay, where can I deal with this mountain? So that mountain could be 3 years.
Yes.
By the time I climb it, you understand? So by the time I'm climbing the third year mountain, then I set the next 3 years. But
So
then I realize it's 20 years.
Oh, I get you. So it's a continuous process.
Yeah, so I always have long-term goals, mid-term goals, and short-term goals. And there are things that you have to do to walk to there. So you won't even realize that time is passing because you are heading to that.
Yes.
And for me, one of those major goals when I developed the brand was that I will have and hold fashion conversations in a room where there's nothing going on about fashion. And one time I found myself holding a whole meeting with rice manufacturers, and we were discussing fashion.
Oh, that's
and the topic is endless, and it's about fashion. So I wanted to interrupt, and I needed to be able to get collaboration across government, across the UN, across institutions like Strathmore Business School, and I'm discussing the fashion world. And by the way, hacking that has taken me 5 years.
I can try to imagine.
You can imagine, eh?
Oh, goodness.
Because if we're not talking about whether your shirt fits, then what else do we talk about? But I challenged Strathmore. I told them, you have no choice. We are fixing this creative story together.
Wow.
And we signed a contract. So yeah, so that
continues
setting very hard
goals,
targets and high goals, and I won't sleep. I'm one of those people. If I say I'm doing something,
you have to get it.
Everybody around me will hear it, will hear it. They'll
I think we share that.
Yes.
My goodness.
I won't stop talking about it until it's done.
Wow. So even time is literally running out. So in I have 90 seconds. I have like 10 questions I want to just do a quick fire with you. Okay. So whatever comes to your mind. So I'll just be going fast. So what's the greatest
Item.
Yes.
Well, everything is vanity. I don't think they're worth spending my time on. I think time,
Interesting.
peace and silence. Yeah.
Listen,
Mm.
if you could afford any car, which one will you drive?
As long as it takes me to Kajiado or to Githurai, it's okay. And it has AC.
And it has AC. That's
So
most important.
I'm not gonna use that. I don't have a title for a car.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Mm.
My goodness, time has literally flown, but thank you so much for having come to the show. I think there's so much I've learned from you. I think the biggest thing that I've actually, my takeaway, because personally, I think this show is my, what's it called, my opportunity also to learn patience. Wow.
Mm.
So that has been Carole Kinoti, the entrepreneur behind the Carole Kinoti brands, the Mombasa executive program at the Strathmore Business School, the what's it called, Fashion in the Road. There's so much about you. Only at 51, and she keeps on getting younger and younger and still ambitious as ever.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for having watched the show. As always, I always let you know that we are at the Capital Club. You're an entrepreneur, you need to be part of this particular network because the who's who, even Carole is part of this particular program, or rather part of this particular club. So my name has been Ian Dennis. You can follow me across all social media platforms at Ian Dennis Network, at KTN Home, and you can actually even watch this show after this on YouTube at KTN Home. Thank you so much. Until next time, see you right